Well, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and to see so many of you here. We've had some really interesting comments so far. Patrick has talked about the fact that Yorkshire people don't like being told they're not from Yorkshire. I've never yet met a Yorkshireman who you could stop from saying they're from Yorkshire, whatever you did. And in terms of European identity, that was quite an interesting point, but you failed to mention the best of all, the Eurovision Song Contest. Even if Australia is now practically in it, it's still a European identity. Mark talked about a whole lot of things, but I'll echo some. Van talked about a patriotic case for being in Europe. I think it's absolutely right. We are stronger in Britain when we are strong in Europe. He also touched on something really interesting, which is that as people learn about Europe, as people hear the facts, as people give us this way with somebody from each side talking to them, all the studies show that they become more and more pro-European. I'm not sure we'll manage that tonight, given quite how the ratios have started off. But that is what happens. And when Nick Clegg took on Nigel Farage in the last European Parliament debate, we didn't get a great result, I admit that. But what's changed is what public say about wanting to be in Europe. It has changed public opinion. It's also unified our group of members of the European Parliament. We now only have one of them, and she always says the right thing for the party. And then we heard from Ralph, and he talked about some economist studies, and of course, economists have correctly predicted 10 of the last 7 recessions. But he didn't make the strongest cases I've heard, and I think we should look at this unified bicycle thing. I think that should be a priority, and I hope actually... But for me, being part of the European Union, working with part of my European partners, is really about values. Even if your values aren't always the same as theirs, you can sometimes work together. I've been in a coalition with Conservatives for 5 years. You can just about make it work. So this is about values. It's about what kind of country we want to be. And I want us to be an open and outward-looking country, not one that's trying to close itself off from other nations. I want us to stand tall in the world. I want us to be internationalist and work with others to resolve the problems that affect us all, regardless of where we're from. And I want us to reject arguments that are fundamentally based on fear of the other, fear of foreigners. The sort of language that suggests that the reason why young children aren't playing football in the streets is because of foreigners. Now, there are massive, huge issues in the world that we just can't tackle on our own. They transcend national boundaries. They're global by nature. And the European Union helps us to work with other nations. It's not the only thing there. The United Nations has a role as well. And I've never yet heard people like Patrick say the UN imposes far too much. That when UNESCO said that traffic lights should be the same colour all around the world, that was taking our liberties as what the colours around away from us. I'm quite pleased that wherever we go, people know what those lights should be. So if we talk about climate change, and Mark talked about this, it's probably the most pressing issue facing our species. We have to act urgently. And the European Union working together to push that agenda ahead. Doesn't always work perfectly. We have made far more progress than we would do if we cut ourselves off and didn't work with them. We've got the Kyoto Protocol, we've got the 2011 deal, we've created a business trading scheme. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. But of course it doesn't matter who you actually have in the European Union, who is actually doing the work, who is actually negotiating for you there. And so AJU, for example, has done a huge amount of work with the Green Growth Group across the European Union, bringing together those politicians and countries that actually want to make a difference and making serious, radical targets to cut greenhouse gas emissions. So that's climate change. What about cross-border crime and terrorism? Well, Mark's already talked about a whole lot about the success from Europol. People can travel across the border. We have to have arrangements to be able to bring them back or send them there to trial. The 21st of July, London bomber Hussein Osman came back to Italy in only 2 months to face justice here as he should have done. Previously, that would have taken months, years, or could never have happened. And of course, we do live in a global economy. We provide a much, much bigger market which promotes and supports British businesses. It means that businesses want to come here to set up. And if you talk to businesses in the UK, if you talk to businesses in Cambridge, whether they're large businesses or whether they're small businesses, they say they want us to remain within the European Union. 78% of members of the CDI want us to stay within the European Union. Almost every single company in Cambridge I have ever spoken to has said they want to stay here. Doncaster here in Cambridge, it's really important we have standards that work, whether we're talking about the high-tech, biotech, or clean-tech industry. AstraZeneca would not have come here as a global hub if they thought we were going to be walking away from the rest of Europe. They would have gone somewhere else in Europe. The universities here have spoken out very clearly about the need to be able to work for the rest of Europe. So there's huge self-interest there. There's also the issue of peace. So anybody here actually imagine France and Germany going to war at the moment? It's unimaginable in a way that it just simply wasn't before. Now let me touch on immigration, because I'm very clear on immigration. Immigration has been a net positive for this country and will continue to be so. There are, of course, problems. In some places, lots of people coming in need to run out of school places or housing. So expand the school, build more houses, don't allow people coming in to contribute to our economy. Don't stop international students from coming. That's right, we shouldn't stop people from the rest of the world either, but it's not a question of Europeans or non-Europeans. Now just to finish, do I think the European Union is perfect? Absolutely, it is not perfect. It could be much, much better. It's not democratic enough. It can be far too secretive. It can waste money by shuffling between Brussels and Strasbourg. It can do all these things very, very badly. But you know what? Westminster and Whitehall can get things wrong as well. I don't hear the cries to say we must leave London, get away from London control. It just doesn't happen. We have to fix those things, and we do that by working inside, not by running away. The European Union gives us huge opportunities to tackle the challenges ahead, which will be international challenges, not those traditionally dealt with by the nation state. If we just turn our back on other countries, turn our back on the European Union, turn our back on our neighbours, our partners, our friends and our allies, that will just make things much harder. So let's take that alternative course, the internationalist, open, cooperative course, and let's stay in the European Union. Thank you.